Hi, this is Colleen with Chats with Colleen. We're so glad that you're here joining us today for our biweekly podcast episode. This episode is going to be with Lauren Dahl. She has an amazing, kind of sad story to tell us about her home that they bought, a dream home with land, an old farmhouse style, and it was riddled with mold and the horrific adventure that they've gone through, which is unimaginable for most people when they think about this and how we all know mold is destructive and the things that it can do, but how much it changed their family's life and what they're going through with this house, a mortgage company, and all of that. And then she gives us details about tests and kits that they use to determine what type of mold and how long it took them to find out like what was going on with the house. So it's pretty interesting, really neat. And I'm so honored and humbled that she took the time to join us and share this with us. It's very educational. And she was very brave for doing this. So, like, share, subscribe, and please reach out to us if you would like to join us on the show. We can do it via Zoom or in our office. We really appreciate you. And thanks so much and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Colleen with Chats with Colleen. We are so glad that you're joining us. And today I have Lauren Dahl with us, who is going to talk briefly about the money pit home that she purchased with her family. And I'm dying to hear about this because this sounds like it could be a complete nightmare, but it also seems like this is something that could happen to anybody. So, Lauren, thank you again for joining us.
You're so welcome.
And then can you tell me briefly or a little bit about how you decided to buy this home and what were your plans with it?
Yeah, my husband and I lived on 2.5 acres and we have 3 kids. And our dream had always been to raise the kids on a lot of land. So we kind of took a big leap and moved to an area that we didn't know, but where the land was pretty and it was rural. So the price per acre was pretty low. And basically, we were able to sell our old house on 2.5 acres for a little bit more than what we bought. um, this 60 acres with a really beautiful, super cool old farmhouse, which was kind of always our dream. Like we've never wanted to build a house. And so I guess it was really the dream of having land, a lot of land for ourselves and our kids that kind of led us to make this purchase.
Wow. How many acres was, or is it?
It's about 59 to 60.
Oh, wow.
Probably like 20 of it's cleared and the rest is woods and there's a 2 acre pond. It's really pretty. It's really pretty.
Wow. That sounds amazing. So when you first saw the home, did you fall in love with the home or did you fall in love with the land?
It was honestly both. It was out of state from where we lived at the time. So my parents had happened to be on vacation nearby. And I was like, Mom, Dad, you got to run up and look at this house for me. And so they did. And my dad was like, man, Lauren, this is what we were looking for back when we were your age and we just couldn't find it. We loved the land. We loved the layout of the land. And then we just, you know how it is, like old farmhouses are so cool. This one was from 1906. So it just had that character. And the inside had been redone in probably the early 90s. So it needed updating, but it was very livable. Like our plan was, you know what, we'll save up cash for the next 4 or 5 years and we'll do a big renovation in 4 or 5 years. But it was totally fine on the inside.
Right.
Um, and so I guess I would just say it was both. Like the house was awesome and the land was awesome too.
Oh, gosh. Had you bought a home prior to this, or was this
We
your first
had
home
this would have
purchase?
been our
Okay.
fourth home purchase. And then I had gotten into just in the beginning stages of getting into real estate investing. Um, so starting to, know more than probably the average person.
Right. So you weren't like a first-time home buyer by any means going out
No.
doing this.
Yeah.
Wow. So when did you realize that something was maybe not right with the house?
My my husband probably day two was like, my skin is so itchy. And I was like, whatever. Like he has some seasonal allergies. So I was like, maybe there's just something like we moved several states. So like it wasn't like we were living close to where we were. And I'm like, maybe there's something just in the air, some kind of pollen that's making him itchy. And then day 7, the upstairs shower started leaking downstairs, which this home was 125 years old. So we had set aside, I think, about 30,000 in cash, knowing we're probably going to run into a few things. It's an old house, right?
Of
And so
course.
we just kind of chuckled. We were like, all right, well, there's the first thing. Because no one had lived in it in at least a year or two. The people had passed away that lived there before us. And so it dripped and we put a bucket. And then a few days later, I had a contractor come out and he cut out the drywall of the ceiling and it was solid black mold. And I was like, oh gosh. So that 7 days in was basically the beginning
Wow.
of like, I still didn't realize how big of an issue it was.
Hmm.
Um, but it was sort of the beginning of all of it kind of falling to pieces.
That's kind of leads me into the next question. So the signs, like your husband was itchy, which I know is a symptom of mold or
Yeah.
whatever, how your body's reacting to it. Um, and then when you cut the ceiling, but you probably didn't still think anything of it because I mean, we can have leaks. Like I had a leak from a
Right. And
toilet and my
it
ceiling.
would
Mhm.
mold if no one saw it, right? So we
If no
taped it
one,
off really good with plastic and duct, because we knew, and we put air filters in that part of the house. So we did all the right things. Um, but we talked to some friends of ours after that who had just gone through major mold issues throughout their entire home. And it's like he knew, he could just tell it was a bigger deal. He was like, you guys need to, this, this could be, you might need to figure out a different housing situation. I was like, no. But he
no.
started teaching me like what to look for. So we went through the house and started just noticing some other signs on all the air duct vents. They were covered in mold, right? Um, like just the cap pieces that go in the ceiling, where your air comes out. And then if you looked up into the actual ducting, it was like all mold. And then behind a shower that it was kind of one of those, I don't know, it's not like a tiled shower, but where it's just the insert, it was peeling off the wall and it was solid black. So I started having breathing problems, just like couldn't get like a deep
Get your
breath of air.
breath.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then my face, like I've always had pretty good skin and I looked all blotchy and red and like it felt like raw, like I had been in the wind. And then I had
Oh,
a horrible inner ear ache, like really bad. And if I would leave the house for several hours, it would go away. And then about being in it for about 30 minutes, I'd get an insane inner ear ache. And the kids was more just a little bit of breathing. We tried to stay outside all day because we knew like there's something's going on. So we slept inside, but I wouldn't let the kids inside during the day except to go to the bathroom.
oh, wow. So did you get like a mold company or somebody to come analyze the home for you to determine what the state of it was?
The mold industry is, I don't want to say sleazy, but a little bit like it's
Can
it's
be.
very
Hmm.
questionable. So it's hard to find the more I'm a major researcher and I was in kind of the toxic free holistic health world before. And so I did a lot of research and just found out it's really hard to find someone really good. They'll fix the part
Yes.
they see, but then there's other places that they didn't check. And so we had a couple local people come in and they were like, this isn't a big deal. This is fine. I'm okay. It just felt off to me. So I paid for a $600 dust test. I've been around the home and like took dust samples everywhere. And those results came back really bad. So at that point, we had moved out, but at that point, my parents brought us a camper down. So we were living in a camper. I hired a company out of California, which was basically the best in the nation I could find. And it was a month or 2 month waiting list, but they came out. They have people in different regions. So the guy came out and did a full day here, 8 hours of testing and labs and stuff.
8 hours. Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, so you had already moved out at that point. And then when they came and did the 8 hours of testing, did they tell you immediately that this was as bad as it
He
was?
hinted it was bad. Like at the end of the day, I was like, how, he's more the boots on the ground guy, and then it's all gets sent to their lab and their specialists read all the results. But he was like, it's bad. Um, and I think it took 6 more weeks to get the results. It was a really long process of not knowing what was the matter or how bad it was, which that was probably the hardest of just like in limbo for so long. We had insurance come out and they They denied it because it was pre-existing, which it clearly was. Like that did not show up in 7 days of us owning the home.
Hmm.
So it just was one of those where we're like, gosh, what do we do? How bad is this?
Wow. And then what point did you decide that you may have to demolish the home instead of being able to,
Rebuild it.
repair it? Yeah, renovate it in some way.
We had like our friend who had the mold issue, he had suggested at the beginning, and I was like, no way, we're not tearing down this house. We love this house. Like I will, even if it costs a little bit more to save it, like than to rebuild, we'll save it. Like we loved the house. Um, and we got on the Zoom call with the mold expert. And the first thing he said, he was like, how attached are you to this house? I was like, very. This is our dream home. We're not moving ever again. Like, this is what we've always wanted. And he's like, I never recommend this, but that house needs to be torn down. And at that point, we were still just like, no, we're not doing, like, it's not an option. Um, but we also at the same time, we had hired a foundation um structural inspection before we bought the house. And he told us it was fine, but that it would need some things in the next 10 years. So whenever we ripped up the flooring to, get these things done, we came back out and then he laid the second opinion was, oh, no, never mind. You got to redo this whole foundation. And then someone told us the roof was done horrible, although it had been done right after Michael. It had just been done all wrong. And then we found out about all this mold. So it started to like add up. Like the house has to be lifted in a new foundation. It needs a whole new roof. It needs to be completely gutted and all the framing treated. And then it would have to be completely built back. So we're like really, we're getting really high, in the repair costs. So we hired a architect who specialized in building defects and mold. She reviewed everything and she was like, you guys got to tear this down. She goes, even if you had $1 million, you would never, the way this house was pieced together over the last 125 years, it's going to be almost impossible to get it structurally to a place where it doesn't let water in. And at that point, we just were like, okay, if we don't want to spend $250,000 fixing this house and then in 10 years get sick because of mold again. And that was where the final decision came of like, if she had told us if you spent, $250,000 and could get it back and get it safe, guaranteed, we would have done it. But to risk that much money, not knowing if the house would ever be okay, it wasn't worth it for our health.
Wow. So I know you've probably, well, I know you've experienced, not only has it hurt your health, I'm sure it's hurt your pocketbook. Sounds like this isn't, as you said, I do insurance. Insurance wouldn't cover this because it wasn't caused by something that was immediate. This was
Right.
something that was ongoing. So, you run the risk of a lot of the stuff you were having to pay out of pocket. And
Yeah.
you just bought a new home, so you probably had to pay a down payment, moving costs,
Yes.
and then you still have a family. And so how is that? How have you dealt with that to be able to move forward with your family and still keep your sanity?
It's been financially, it has been really hard. We lived in the camper for about a month, and then the church next door had an empty parsonage, like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath house that they weren't using. Their pastor wasn't using it. So they were incredible. It's probably a quarter of a mile away, and they let us live there for a year for free. Which was just that really saved us. We ended up buying a fifth wheel. So we're
Hmm.
back on the property in a fifth wheel right now. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, financially, it's like we had enough, we had enough set aside for some repairs, but the mold test was $6,000, $7,000. The lawyers have been five, six, seven, eight, nine
Every
thousand
time you
dollars.
turn,
Yeah, we
yeah.
had to build an office. That's where I'm sitting now in our shop for my husband because we both work from home and we're trying to live in a camper and work from home. And it just it does keep adding up. And at this point, you know, we've lost half the value of what we paid, right? So we're backwards by several $100,000. And we're required to pay insurance on this house that has to be torn down. It's so silly. The lender won't let us tear it down yet. I'm working with them, but that's like $700 a month to pay for a building that is not
You can't
livable.
live in. Yeah, it's that's like horrific. You can't live in it and there's nothing you can do. And then you can't not pay it if you want to keep your
Right. Then they'll
credit.
call our
It's a
loan.
whole, That's why I
It's a
said, like,
weird cycle.
it's a weird cycle. It's like a money pit. There was that movie that with Shelley Long, I remember watching as a kid, and they bought this home, like an old home.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if it had mold issues, but it had everything wrong with it. And they just
Yeah.
kept spending so much money and they could never get it
Yes.
right. But I just can't imagine. So are your plans to rebuild this house on the same lot?
We've gone back and forth a lot over the last 2 months. It's, back when this house was built 125 years ago, the road wasn't busy. It was a probably, little dirt road. And so it's kind of close to the road. Not super close, but enough where you're like, we might move back on the property. But then you're talking new well, new septic. We put in a
Hmm.
$10,000 fence for the dogs, like a huge 1 acre fence. So it's like new dog fence. All, that adds up too. And what we've actually decided on, which we're in the middle of talking with the bank about, is going ahead and putting in a brand new double wide for now.
Hmm.
And that's not something I ever really imagined I'd live in, is a double wide. But to imagine, like, we can't get a construction loan because we've got the debt of the house. They're not going to approve that. And then
It's
we'd have
too
to bring
much.
so much money to closing when we refi. So if we can talk the bank into letting us drop the insurance on this house and tear it down and put in a new double wide, our payment doesn't actually go up by much because losing that insurance really helps. Um, and that gets us into a home. Like, we got 5 people in a fifth wheel. We homeschool all 3 kids, and my husband and I work from home. So it's just like, what?
Constant. Right.
Crowded.
You're constant there. You don't have much space.
We don't have much space. So that's what we're thinking, almost for like maybe a 10-15 year plan. And if we can build something again one day, we'd love that. But it feels more important to get a little bit more established in
Some
something,
stability so you can
that's
start making
affordable.
your home. Yeah, and be
Yeah.
affordable because you've been through the ringer.
And we're still paying like we're paying a mortgage on 60 acres and a house, but there's no house, right? So it's kind of just trying to figure out.
What you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't live in the house. Oh my gosh. So if you looked back now, was there something you would have done differently before buying this house?
I don't know. I'm like really a master mold detector now, so one, like, I can walk in and feel it places. Once you've been exposed, you often experience symptoms very quickly. And I did little actually petri dish testing when we came and did our walkthrough. And a couple, it showed up a little bit moldy. I'm not sure why it wasn't more extreme on those petri dishes that I did. Probably just like, we were driving 16 hours to come see it and it rode back in the car with us. I don't know what happened, but
It
I
didn't
don't
get to
know
grow.
if there was much more. Knowing what I know now, yeah, I would have seen signs on the inspection report of like, that's water damage, that's water damage, that's water damage. And I would have had a mold inspector come in. But honestly, I don't know how helpful they would have been because the local people we had were like, it's fine, just do a little bit. There's something here, and maybe we would have negotiated the price down. But knowing what I know now, it would have been a lot of red flags. But I just don't think, like, the average person who hasn't been through mold, we wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have been, I mean, it could have
It's
happened
just
to
not a
anybody.
knowledge you will have.
I don't think so either. Because you did an inspection, you said, and you even growing in a petri dish yourself. I mean, who
Yeah.
would think of that? So I feel like you did more than anybody would have done.
It's
Certainly
just
more than
kind of
I
one
would
of
have
those,
done.
like, it's a bad thing that happened.
Of
And our
course.
inspector definitely missed some things, but yeah,
I'm
it's
sure. So with that being said, do you have any recourse with what you can do for yourself financially? We already talked about the insurance, but is there
yeah.
anything else?
We did go to mediation with one of our inspectors. And I think just some of the issues are, these guys are just real small companies and they didn't have the right insurance and don't have the assets. And we are in the middle of a lawsuit with one of them, and we'll see. I've never been through anything like this. We're not the kind of people that, like, let's just sue someone. It's
No,
just not.
I understand, but
But it was like, this wasn't our fault. Like, we hired all the right people to do all the things, and somehow, somewhere, someone really messed up, right? I don't know who that was necessarily, but it's like we're having to pay the brunt of it. And so it's possible we could get some money back, but
mhm.
at this point, we're just sort of like, how do we just keep moving forward? And if that works out, great. But if it doesn't, we still got to figure this out, right? We still got to figure out how to get back on our feet again.
Yeah, go forward. What advice could you give to another customer or client who's trying to buy a home, specifically like an older home, 100+ year old
Yeah.
home in Florida? What advice would you give to them?
I think older homes, I think they are so cool, right? They don't build them like that anymore. Even you look at our attic beams and our floor beams and the old cypress growth, like there's these beautiful old trees used. But I don't know if I would ever buy one again. I think people are being more educated about mold and the effects of it on our health. And I pass, as an investor, like I'm always keeping my eye out for rundown houses. And you see these really cool old rundown houses. And I'm like, I don't think I'd ever touch one again because of the likelihood that there is a good amount of mold in there. And I do think maybe there's some that aren't, but living in such a humid climate, in the Southeast, unless that house was very well maintained for its entire life, which you just don't know if it was or not, I would stay away from old homes. And I hate to say that. That's not something I would have ever said before, but I don't think it's worth the risk to your health. And if you were to buy an old home, I would do an extensive mold testing before, even like a $600. The test we used was called the dust test. And you just go through the whole house and it teaches you how to, collect the dust on one rag and you send it in and you just see like that would tell you if the house is safe or not. Maybe you wouldn't know specifically where it's not safe, but you would at least get levels. And that's something I would, I wish I had known to do on an older home. Even a newer home, though, you're seeing it more in new construction now, too. Mold is, people are becoming aware of what it does to your body.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Has this changed your outlook on home ownership for yourself?
Not at all, other than I've been thinking like, man, if my kids ever found a house one day that was old and they thought was cute, like I, I would recommend against it, which is kind of sad to say, but um, I love owning our own home. I just I've learned enough now to know like, okay, it's not worth sacrificing your health
To keep
to try
it.
to make a house
Absolutely.
work, right?
Right.
And so trying to do as much as you can ahead of time to figure out if that house is safe um is really huge because you're going to regret it later if that mold's pre-existing, insurance won't cover it, and then you're out of, even if it had just been mold in one room and it had been fixable, you're still talking 50-60 grand, for the
Mhm.
mediation or the remediation and the
Repair.
rebuilding, it's a lot of money. So
It's not cheap here in Florida.
no.
So you still work in real estate as an investor?
Yeah, actually mostly in East Tennessee, but yeah, I love real estate. I've only been in it 2 years, full time for a year, but
Mhm.
um I do really like it.
That's great. That's great that you're able to find it outside of Florida too. It's probably even better. Florida's difficult. Yeah. So if somebody listening or who reads this intro is going through something similar in their
Yeah.
home, what would advice could you give to them on what they should do? Like, where would they start?
It's interesting. Like once this came into my life, it's like, wow, I get, texts or emails like my friend, and I do tell people like, get out. Like, especially if you're having symptoms, it's something's really wrong, right? And as horrible and hard and inconvenient as it is, like get out until you figure out what's going on. And maybe it's not a huge deal, but if it is, you're just causing more and more damage to your health. Like, thankfully, we really don't have any long-term effects because we just weren't in it long enough.
You
And as soon
left.
as we realized it was in the HVAC system, which I think was after 7 days, we just turned off the entire HVAC system and left the windows open. So we caught everything early enough, got out soon enough that we didn't have any lasting effects. So I think that's the one thing is get out if you suspect mold, and then really do your research to find a company that doesn't just have good Google reviews, like really truly is passionate about mold, because anyone can come in, Surf Pro or any of these bigger companies can come in and be like, yeah, it's here. Da, da, da. But the people that are the best are the ones that like, they're like on a treasure hunt for it, right? Like someone should spend 4 to 8 hours in your house, not just 30 minutes walking around.
Yeah. And so you said there was a rag, the test that you bought that was $600 and you
Yeah.
go around. What's it called?
Um, so the cheapest test I recommend people starting with is it's from CitraSafe, and those are the Petri dishes. And
Okay.
I think it's like $4 a Petri dish. So I buy whenever we move, I buy one for every room in our house. And you set it out for an hour, and then you put the lid on it and wrap it in aluminum foil for a week, and you open them up and you can read them. And they basically say if like each Petri dish has more than 4 types of spores or 4 spores, something like that, you've got an issue. And so if your home is bad after self-testing, then I would move to the dust test. So I think it's just
Yes.
dusttest.com.
Okay.
$600. That will give you a detailed report, not on where it is in your house, but the types that are in your home and how high the levels are. If that comes back really bad, then it's worth, unfortunately,
Pursuing
forking
it.
out the thousands of dollars to get extreme testing and labs. So, like, we know it's behind this wall cavity in this room and it's under this floor cavity in this room. You get like a detailed report of where it is. And at that point, that report can be taken to a remediation company, and they know exactly where to cut out and exactly what to do. And every spot is taken care of because you've tested your whole home, not just a general test.
Wow. I'm gonna look that up. That's like really good advice. You can do some of this stuff on your own at
The
home. You have to still pay for it, but you can do it.
Yes, you can
Oh,
definitely at least find out if your home is safe, which I think the Petri dishes, everyone, whenever you move into a rental or a house, you should do those immediately. We've done it probably every home for the last 10 years. But the mold company that we use was called We Inspect out of
mhm.
California. And they have a great like Instagram and Facebook, and they've got reels that kind of teach you how to spot mold. And I just went through and I watched all of those. And so when I went through my own home and they teach you how to go through your own home, I was like, oh, here's a sign, here's a sign, here's a sign. And so that was really helpful to kind of just a miniature short 1 hour education on how to spot mold in my own home.
Wow. I'm going to definitely share that. And now I know you said that you want to demolish the home, but the mortgage company won't let you. Why
Yeah.
not? Why?
I don't know. Mostly no one knows what to do with us
Okay.
because a lot of times with an issue like this, it's the insurance company will pay off the loan and then you go get a construction loan and you start all over. Or it's a new construction and the contractor has to deal with it, right? So this is such no like when I've talked to our insurance, when I've talked to the lender, everyone's like, we have no clue what to do. And even our lawyer was like, I've never had anything like this. I do a lot with new construction that has issues, but never with
Mhm.
something that insurance won't cover. It's just a mess. I think too, possibly like the previous owners could have been liable, but they passed away, and their
There's
sons never came to visit that we know of, or they wouldn't have known, truly, probably. So it's like truly, it's just this, we're stuck in this really awful spot of no one taking responsibility. Um,
right.
But that being said, I'm just basically, I'm still in. The bank came back and said, no, you can't tear it down. And I was like, well, it's not going to work. So I wrote them a letter and just said, this is what we put into it. We've put in this much money. Da, da, da. We've done this, this, and this. We are trying to add value back to this property. You're actually creating the value to go down by leaving this house up because it has to be demolished. So when it's demolished, the value will increase a tiny bit more. And then when we drop a double wide on it, it'll increase a little bit more. So just trying to talk them into like, I'm being very proactive to try to remedy this situation. You've got to work with me on this.
Have they let you defer like the payments or anything? Like sometimes during a loss? No. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah,
They
it's
basically,
taken about 3 or 4 months. Like my first question to them was, can I drop this insurance? Like I have a building that has no value. Can I drop this insurance? And that took a while to get answered. No. And then now that we've figured out we want to buy the double wide, I was like, can I tear it down and put this on? It's just a weird. So I'm just nicely, I like to call it like nicely annoying. Like I'm going to annoy you kindly until you Let
answer
me,
my question.
I'm
Yeah, or
living in a camper.
give me some solution that makes sense because you can't live there. So, I mean, what do they want you to do? Just give the house back to them? All they're going to get
Right.
is the land. It's probably,
Right. And that's the thing. Like, if we defaulted, you guys actually have a higher note than the value of the property right now, and so it's to your benefit to let me put a house on here and
hmm
start to get this value back up again. Like, I'm actually doing, I know it's a big bank, so they don't care about 10,000 or 20 or $50,000, but I'm like, in my opinion, I'm like, we're actually trying to increase the value back up, right? So
Right.
please let me do that.
Oh my gosh. Well, Lauren, can you share your contact information for anybody who maybe have questions about this and also your real estate business that you do in Tennessee?
Yeah, so my email address is just Lauren, Lauren, M, and then Dahl, Dahl at gmail.com. And then my business up in kind of the Knoxville area is Shiloh Land and Home. And I've got a Facebook page and I got a website. The website's just shilowlandandhome.com. I still have to go in and make a few edits because it's brand new. But I
Okay.
mostly buy, homes that need some work and things
Mhm.
like that, or people who have inherited a property and they don't live there, or house needs repairs, or someone passed away and they can't keep up with it. So that's mostly yeah, what I do up there.
What you do. Well, that's nice. But thank you again for joining me, Lauren,
You're
and
so
sharing your
welcome.
story. It's heartbreaking. I mean, to hear this, I mean, it's just a lot of people wouldn't know what to do. I
Yeah.
feel like they
Well,
would,
I've I've learned a lot in the last year and a half.
I feel like you could write a book and help
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening and joining us. If you haven't already, please share, subscribe, and like our episodes and our podcast. Also, leave a review. It will be so helpful to us, and we would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us at any time, we're open to any guests joining us in person and on Zoom. We post and record episodes bi-weekly, so that's twice a month. Um, Also, they're posted on our socials, which is Facebook, Secured Insurance Group, Instagram, Colleen Insurance Lady. This podcast was hosted by myself, Miss Colleen Pacheco, and recorded and produced and edited by Sean Spazzato. Our podcast cover art was designed and created by Norma Pacheco, and our intro and outro music is created by Lounge Bar by Geronic. Goodbye.